are good to go.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. There was a number of business items. Hopefully it won't take us too long to go through them all. For August 10th with TCC, just welcome everybody. Real quick, is there any public comment? I'm assuming there's no public there in the room. All right.
We have Vicky's son in the room, but
He's playing video games. No comment.
All right. So first thing we have is approval of the agenda and consent agenda. If someone would like to make a motion.
This is William High. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda and agenda.
Vicky Eastland, I'll second.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if we can just go through roll call.
Give me a second.
Sure.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High. Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper. Here it comes again. Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Yes, approved.
Did I miss anyone?
Daniel Cobb, Mills River, aye.
Sorry.
Mark Bieberdorf at Town of Fletcher, aye.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move into our first business item, which is a letter of support for NCDOT protected grant application.
sure. So this is a project that NCDOT is planning to submit for the Federal Highways Program, the PROTECT program. That's a new program that was established through the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it's a program that aims at transportation resiliency. DOT is planning on submitting a project very cleverly titled Blue Bridge. Bridge longevity upgrades to enhance resiliency, increase dependability, and grow equity. That deserves consideration just for that acronym. But that project includes the replacement of 3 bridges in Buncombe County, I believe 2 of which are in the MPO, 1 is in the RPO, and the replacement of a bridge and 3 culverts in Madison County, all of which are in the RPO. In your packet, there is additional information provided from NCDOT on the specific facilities that they plan to have replaced as part of this project. But what is requested from the MPO is a letter of support, which is also drafted in your agenda packet. Are there any questions or comments on our first item?
Okay, I don't hear any. I really hate to have to make everybody go through this 6 more times, but I don't really know that there's a way around it, excuse me, with the hybrid option to know who's actually voting on the motions. So on a couple of these others, we'll try to maybe combine, but is there a motion to approve the letter of support?
This is William High. I'll make a motion to approve the letter of support.
Okay, is there a second?
Steve Williams, second.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm so sorry to have to do this, but roll call.
Okay. Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris. Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High. Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approve.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Fletcher, Mark Beaverdorf.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Van Cooley.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen.
Aye.
Mills River, Daniel Cobb.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay, so our next business item is amendments to the 2045 MTIP.
Right, so just as a quick refresher, the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that's the MPO's 25-year plan. The main, well, going back, this is something that we last adopted in September of 2020. That's the iteration that looks out to 2045. We're bringing forward a number of amendments today. As part of the federal regulations for the TIP and MTP, the two documents are required to be in line with each other. And with the delays and reshuffling of projects that was done as part of the development of the 2024 through 2033 TIP, we've had to make a number of adjustments to the MTP. So in your packet are a whole lot of charts. The first is the summary of changes. These are the projects whose horizon years we had to change. Just to note, the horizon years are generally what year we anticipate projects being completed by. We have three within the MTP. The first is projects with the horizon year of 2030. So those are projects that we anticipated being completed somewhere between 2020 and 2030. The second horizon is 2040. That's projects we anticipated being done between 2031 and 2040. And the third is going up to 2045, and that is projects that are anticipated to be completed between 2041 and 2045. So we did make a number of shifts. Some of them were somewhat smaller. There are a number of projects moving from 2030 to 2040. A lot of those are because the construction date within the TIP has shifted. Those are projects that were anticipated to start and likely end before 2030. Now they're being scheduled for after 2030. So these changes reflect that as well as the increased cost. However, with all of the cost increases, we did have to make some bigger shifts, especially in the regional impact tier. So just to note, the regional impact tier, that is the funding that comes as part of or through the prioritization process to Region G. That is where we saw a whole lot of cost increases. I think we've talked a lot about Sweeten Creek Road and the cost increases that we're seeing there, but also to point out the A10A project, that's the Future 26 widening that's funded in the regional impact tier. That went from $116 million from when we took the cost estimate in 2020. That is now over $323 million. Sections of the connector have seen pretty sizable increases, and to note, Section A is also funded in the regional impact tier. So one thing that we had to do with regional impact is move some projects to what we're calling outer years, or essentially out of the 25-year horizon. Essentially, the cost increases were so great that even with an optimistic financial forecast like our MTP has, we did not anticipate being able to afford a number of those projects. That includes a couple of projects on Hendersonville Road, Patton Avenue, and New Leicester, which was a TIP project and was removed, and New Leicester Access Management. So those are projects that we would be moving to what we're calling the outer years of the MTP. Also in your packet, we have a number of others moving to the outer years as well. My apologies. So Haywood Road, Tunnel Road and South Tunnel Road, New Clyde Highway, Delwood Road, Smoky Park Highway, and further improvements to Merriman Avenue. Those are projections within the MTP. A lot of those, to note, are projects being submitted to prioritization. So should those be successful, we would reshuffle the MTP once again. But also in your packet, we do have projects that are split up by horizon year. So this is the updated list of projects within those time horizons. 2030, I won't go through all of the projects, but feel free to ask questions. 2040, and finally 2045. And to note, these are all highway projects that are being amended within the MTP. We did not see the same kind of change within bike ped. First of all, because bike ped projects are not programmed as far out, so the magnitude of changes was not as great. Also, there's been a number of grants that have come in that we think are likely to alleviate some of what's programmed. So for this amendment, we are just looking at MTP amendments for planned highway projects. And again, this is required to put the MTP in line with the draft TIP. Are there any questions, comments?
Okay, if no one has any questions and is okay, since the next two items are kind of also dealing with the tip two, unless there's problems, let's just go ahead and go through item C and then make sure there's no questions, and then item D. And then unless there is an issue that someone wants to pull this out and make it a separate motion, maybe we can just do one motion to do all three of those, if that's okay with everyone, unless anyone has any objections to that. Okay, I'm taking a silence as yes. All right, well, let's hold that. We'll come back and make a motion on that, as provided that no one has any problems or issues with it. And we'll move on to business item C, which is adoption of the 2024-2033 TIP.
Okay, so just as a refresher, I know we talk about the TIP all the time, but the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is our region's document that reflects transportation investments over a 10-year period. And it describes each project's schedule for implementation, funding sources, and estimated costs. It's kind of, an accounting document really, but it does deal with the schedule to where the funds are coming from and when the funds are allocated to be authorized. So the time has come for us to adopt the 2024-2033 TIP. Development for this TIP was a little different than normal due to rising costs for projects over the last few years. So instead of the normal prioritization process, that was halted, and the development of this TIP was developed using existing projects from the currently adopted 2020-2029 TIP. So there are no new projects in this TIP. There actually were some taken out. So a bit about the adoption timeline. The Board of Transportation adopted this TIP in June of this year, and this will be presented to the MPO board next week at the board meeting for adoption. So per our public involvement policy, there's a 30-day public comment period that has been open since July 18th. and is open until a week from today. And in your packet, there is kind of outlined how to submit public comment and also how to access the draft 2433 tip. Public comment period is still open for the next 7 days. Please share with constituents, email lists, etc. The more public comment we get is obviously better. And online on our website, there's a new interactive version of the tip as well as a PDF version of the tip. Yeah, so I think we're looking for a motion to.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to zoom out really quick, I mean, this has been a very long process to develop this TIP, and a very different one. So this is kind of the culmination of the results of a lot of cost increases, the pandemic shock to revenues from transportation, not that the development of TIPs is usually a fun process, but I would say this has probably been the least fun. Just to summarize the projects that we lost, our Cayuga Road in Henderson County, NC 280, the Access Management Project, 2374 in Haywood and Jackson County, the NC 191 widening, New Lester Highway Access Management, New Lester Highway and Patton Avenue intersection improvements, part of Swananoa River Road, Riceville Road, North Louisiana Avenue, Section C of the connector. There's a lot of projects that the needs aren't going away, but those were projects that essentially the choice was we either had to cut or not get any new projects for some funding tiers until 2052. This has been a tough process, but I do want to say that I do really appreciate all of our member governments as well as the divisions for their work on helping to make some tough choices. As Logan alluded to, we do have a new interactive tool on our website, and it's worth just a quick mention. It's awesome. It is really, really good. One of the frustrations I've had since I've been here is that our TIP has just been a series of spreadsheets that we occasionally cross things out and then add more and more pages. The new tool, if you haven't checked it out, please do. It's under the TIP on our website. There's mapping tools. There are tracking tools so you can see what has happened to projects over time. What are the amendments that have happened? What are the changes that have been requested and made? I think it is a big, big, big step forward. And that's a tool that we contracted with Eco Interactive. Just FYI, we do have a bit of a deal for the first 2 years. I think I'm supposed to smile and wave on a couple of webinars. Please check it out if you haven't already. I think it is a big, big step forward in helping to stay up to date with what projects are going on, where they're scheduled, and funding amounts. You can also look at how funding is split by mode. Logan was fantastic in adding filters, so you can filter out what are the projects by jurisdiction. So you can check on the projects within your jurisdiction, I think pretty easily. But check out, let us know what you think. I think that is one of the brighter sides of the development of this TIP.
All right, does anyone have any questions or comments or any opposition to the adoption of the TIP? Okay, hearing none, just kind of hold that item 2. Let's move on to business item D, which is amendments to the 2020-29 TIP. These are all kind of interrelated, so.
There aren't that many amendments to the TIP this month. It primarily consists of various vulnerable road user studies in the region. Highway Safety Project, HS 2014-0 is adding 20,000 for right-of-way that was not previously programmed. And EV 5945 will be removed from the TIP at the request of the division, and that is a multi-use path on Champion Drive in North Canton.
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
All right, does anyone have any questions or comments to that amendment? The quiet group today. Okay, so with that being said, what I'd like to do is if someone wants to make a motion to recommend business items B, C, and D, which would be the amendments to the 2045 MTIP, the adoption of the 2433 TIP, and then amendments to the 2020-29 TIP.
This is Vicki Eastland. I would make a motion that we approve items B, C, and D.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second, it's Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, now if y'all take us through roll call.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approve.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approve.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Etcher, Mark Bieberdorf.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen.
Aye.
Mills River, Daniel Cobb.
Aye.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, so now we'll move to business item E, which is the draft prioritization 7.0 project submittals.
Okay, now that we're adopting a new CIP, that means it's time to turn around and start working on a newer CIP. E 7.0, the seventh iteration of prioritization, also known as SPOTS, that is the process where a whole lot of DOT's transportation improvement funding comes from. So this is a very important process. We are in the very, very early stages, essentially determining what projects are going to go in to this process. So that is the very first step, is that the MPOs, RPOs, and divisions from around the state determine what projects they want to submit. Every organization has a set number of projects that they can. Our MPO has 26 per mode, so we can submit 26 highway projects, new highway projects, 26 new bike ped projects, transit, rail, ferries. I need to retire that joke 100 times at this point. Not a very good project. So we are at the very, very beginning of this process, and we have been working over the last roughly 2 months with various local partners on helping to compile a list of projects to consider for submittal. So we have been having county by county projects. Thank you all to folks who have attended and provided input. I won't go through this entire list of what we have, but to note, the first part of what's in your packet are the carryover projects. Those are projects that are automatically entered into this round of prioritization. And so there's, they don't count towards our 26 submittals, And those are projects that are included for a few different reasons. Some of them are partially funded projects that are not fully committed in the TIP. So if you look at the TIP, they might be in there for preliminary engineering funding only. But other projects are sibling projects. Those are projects where there might have been a bigger project that was conceptualized at first, and one segment of that project was funded. So the first two projects you see there, A10AB and A10AC, that's part of a larger A10A project. A10AA is funded, however, AB and AC are not. Those are considered siblings, so they're part of the carryover list. We have a number of projects like that. Also on the carryover list are projects that used to be funded in the TIP but were removed in the TIP development process. So there are other projects included as well. We only have one project that we're recommending modifying. That is the Canoga Road project in Henderson County, and that goes from Church right now to Little River Road. We are recommending moving the southern termini on that project to Price Road. That would make the project a little bit smaller and remove it from the Flat Rock Historic District. However, no other projects were requested to be removed as of this time. And then we get into the list of new highway submittals. So there is a list of 26 projects. We have them sorted by county alphabetically. So I won't go through all of these, but please look through your packet. These were compiled in coordination with member jurisdictions from around the MPO, with divisions present at all of these meetings. We did have them split up. Haywood County had 4 projects that were submitted. Henderson had 7. Madison County had 1, and Buncombe County had 14. So that's our list of highway projects we plan to submit. Bike ped projects, same split, 14 for Buncombe, 4 for Haywood, 7 for Henderson, 1 for Madison. And a whole lot of projects here. One thing to note with bike ped and essentially anything other than highway is one change that's been made to this process is that the minimum amount to be programmed towards non-highway modes has increased from previous rounds. Previously, the minimum was 4%. That is being increased to 6%. Highway has the minimum of 90%, and that has not changed. Also, we have a list of transit projects that we're planning to submit. And Scott, we're still coordinating with Haywood County, so this list may get a little bit longer. And Madison County as well. And Madison County. So this list may get a little bit longer when it comes back in September. And last but not least, rail projects. I don't think we've ever submitted rail projects, so this is new. One highway rail crossing that we discussed with the rail division is the crossing of the Norfolk Southern Line at Riverside Drive. If you aren't familiar, that is a section where the rail crosses Riverside Drive, and there are no crossing treatments, no ding-dongs, as my son said. So if you go out there, probably right around now, I think there's 1 train per week, and it just kind of drifts onto the road. It is very odd. And aside from that, it's also the site where there's a lot of bicycle crashes. So the rail crosses at a very steep angle, and it makes it really hard for bicyclists to cross. If you've ever biked through there, you kind of have to swing out into the opposite lanes to come across the tracks perpendicularly. Thank you, kindergarten speech therapist. That is one crossing that we would like to see improvements. And also the big one, restoring passenger rail service from Asheville near Biltmore Village to Salisbury. That is a big project that's going to require a lot of coordination with other planning organizations and whatnot. If you're not familiar, we did send out the WNC passenger rail feasibility study a couple of months ago. That study found that essentially to do all the station and rail upgrades to restore passenger service would be around $650 million. This is the passenger rail line that NCDOT has submitted to the Federal Rail Administration for what they're calling their Corridor ID program. If successful in that application, NCDOT could begin environmental work on whatever projects are selected. To note, NCDOT did submit 12 projects from around the state. This is one of those 12. Really what we'd be looking for from this submittal would be the 20% match required to implement this project. So if everything goes successfully, if this line goes into the Corridor ID program, gets environmental study, then it would be considered for engineering and construction funding, which I believe is an 80-20 split. So we would need to get the 20% match from somewhere, preferably the state. If anyone has $150 or so million lying around, by all means. This is a big project, and trying to take advantage of the very large increase in passenger rail funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Tristan, because this is in a number of counties, this county region would only be responsible for a portion of match within Buncombe County, correct? Would it be divided across?
The submittal would be for the whole thing.
Okay.
So there would be a submittal, but when we go to put local input points, we would only be able to put a percentage based
Right.
on.
So each of these planning organizations represented would need to cost.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing is to point out that 6%, as we mentioned, there's a minimum 6% of funding going towards non-highway. It's to be determined whether or not it really would be enough funding to cover the match needed. So we're submitting it into this process, and we'll see where it goes from there. The last thing to note on this is in the draft study, it says the MPO requested the final station be moved from Biltmore Village to the River Arts District. And I got a call from WLOS on that yesterday. The MPO has not taken a position on that. I think someone asked if that had been looked at, but just FYI, if that comes up, there's no official position on Biltmore Village versus River Arts District. That is our full list of draft submittals. The next steps are going to be taking this to the board for approval, and then taking it out to public comment before bringing it back for final approval in September. I will say one thing that we've gotten word on since this list has been compiled is basically the funding projections. And one thing to note is our region, Region G, is projected to have negative $75 million available through 2035. Negative 75. So I think think some of these projects, we might either look at scaling down a little bit, especially in the regional impact tier, or potentially moving the project to find a different division needs project. Because that is not a fantastic funding outlook. But today we are just looking for a recommendation on the draft list of submittals. It will come back through next month for final approval.
All right, hopefully everybody has been involved, at least in their jurisdiction at this point. And Tristan, once we finally put this through, this will just be for the scoring come back, right? And then we're gonna have another opportunity.
Yes, you're gonna be getting a lot more of this on meeting agendas. So projects are submitted. NCDOT gives them quantitative scores, and then for regional impact and division needs tiers, we have to consider what projects we put local input points on. And so those will be the topics of future meetings for sure.
All right, unless anyone has any questions or comments, you do need a motion, right, to recommend this approval of the draft to the board?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone want to make that motion?
Jana Biancaluso moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Jessica.
I think that was Jessica that made the second. At least that's who I heard first.
Yes.
Was there anybody in the room that had a comment though?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, so we have a motion and a second, so let's go through roll call.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Fletcher, Mark Beaverdorf.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen.
Aye.
Mills River, Daniel Cobb.
Aye.
Rio Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
UT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, so our last business item is the MPO planning area.
All right. I shouldn't jinx it, but I really thought this was going to be like a 2.5-hour meeting. What we're bringing forward today is looking at revising the MPO's planning area. Just as a reminder, this kind of goes back to information that came out earlier this year, every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau publishes what's considered the urban areas around the country. Just as a reminder, the criteria for the urban areas changed quite a bit. And one of the big things for our region that changed was the change in what's called hops and jumps. Those are the areas kind of that aren't urbanized. And so how long of a gap can there be before urbanized areas get disconnected? So that was changed from 2.5 miles down to 1.5 miles. And for our region, that means that the Asheville urbanized area, which had grown over the last couple of decades to include large chunks of Haywood County and parts of Madison County and even Transylvania, it contracted quite a bit. And so the urbanized areas that came out as part of the 2020 census actually split urban areas and developed 2 new urban areas within our region. So in Buncombe and Henderson County, That is the Asheville urbanized area. However, the link that was connecting over to Haywood County was severed. There is now a Canton urban area, as well as a very, very large Waynesville urban area. Neither one of those areas is still large enough to require their own MPO, but it's something that has been a pretty big consideration while rethinking our planning areas. So we had meetings with Haywood County and Madison about essentially what they wanted to do as part of our planning area. For Haywood County, it's, I would say, relatively cut and dry. The gap from Buncombe to Haywood is just barely over the 1.5 mile threshold. And based on our GIS coordinators' calculations, I forget, we need something like 2 to 5 new housing units in that little gap in order for that link to be reconnected. In terms of developing the MPO's planning area, that's required to include all of the Asheville urban area as well as what's expected to become part of the urban area over the next 20 years. And I think the case for Haywood coming back into the Asheville urban area is a very, very easy one to make. In terms of Madison, it's not quite as easy. However, our projections show that likely the link going back up to Mars Hill will be reestablished. Today we do have what we are planning to have as our new planning area. So that is down here. There are a number of changes that I can go through very quickly. Let me bring that up. Okay, so the easiest one to explain is Henderson County. Henderson County elected to be all in the MPO more than 20 years ago. And so that is something where they requested to just maintain the status quo. So all of Henderson County is shown as being in the MPO planning area. For Buncombe County, we took the block groups that intersect with the urban area. So the urban area is in purple. Hopefully you can see that on your screens. And the blue are the different block groups that are in Buncombe County. So there is one block group in Buncombe County that would be going from NPO to RPO. That is off of New Leinster Highway. And so that would be one block group that would be making a transition. However, in Eastern Buncombe, there would be an expansion going north for the NPO planning area. To note there, that is largely just, we're taking on a more simplified methodology. Again, if the block group intersects with the urban area, then we brought it into the planning area. My understanding is this is generally how MPO planning areas are established. The current boundaries that are shown in the purple squiggly line is not based on any census geography. As far as we can tell, it was kind of hand-drawn around the watershed, and that has been somewhat problematic in terms of updating demographic and other data. So that is the reason for the kind of expansion up there. In Haywood County, we took a very similar tack. Essentially, any block groups that intersected the urban area were brought into the MPO's planning area. With the exception of one block group that intersects with Cataloochee, it's off of US 276, Jonathan Creek Road. That was one request from the RPO to keep that in the RPO. But in Haywood County, there were some expansions of the planning area up to the west. That's reflecting kind of the Waynesville urban areas. However, in the east, there were some pretty significant contractions. This is also a case where the current boundary was, as far as we can tell, hand-drawn around the Pigeon River watershed. And so our methodology was to simplify that and just make it the block groups that intersect with the urban area. In Madison County, they requested to stay in the MPO as well. We brought in 3 block groups that intersect with the town of Mars Hill. And also this block group just to the southwest of Mars Hill that intersects with a project requested by the town of Mars Hill. That's on the P7.0 draft submittal list. So this is something where our deadline technically isn't until October, but we are hoping to get a little bit ahead and move forward with the planning areas as proposed.
So everything in blue is the new MPO boundary, correct? And the purple was the old, not the dark,
Correct.
the outline purple. Okay.
Right. The purple outline is it's hard to see. It's the old, or I should say the current planning area. To note, one thing that's going away is our little nub in Transylvania County. As of right now, Transylvania County is in the MPO as a non-voting member. So I think with this change, we would update our MOU, and Transylvania County would no longer be a member of the MPO.
All right, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes, this is Suzette Morales. Okay, so we have a question. So this is what you guys expect to be your planning area for urbanized for the next 20 years, what it would look like? Okay. And what was the area that you said was like 1.5, like less than 1.5 miles?
Yeah, so let me try to make this a little. So there is a short stretch between Canton and the Inca Candler portion of Buncombe County.
Okay.
Again, that exceeds the hop and jump limit as part of the new criteria. However, Haywood County has been part of the MPO and the Asheville urban area since 2000. And so, again, it's just needs a couple of new housing units to reestablish that link.
But it doesn't matter, it's still gonna be in the MPA anyway, that area.
Right.
Jessica has her hand raised, Jessica.
Thank you. I probably should have asked this at the prioritization committee, but can you talk a little bit about what the pros and cons are from a transit funding perspective for allowing Haywood to continue to stay in the MPO?
So in terms of transit funding and specifically 5307 funding, is the MPO planning boundary doesn't necessarily have an impact. The 5307 funding is based on the Asheville urban area, not the MPO's planning area. So regardless of Haywood County being in or out, my understanding is they will not be eligible for the 5307 funding that comes to the Asheville urban area. So Haywood County, we've done a lot of work to bring them on as a 5307 subrecipient since 2017. So they will no longer be an eligible subrecipient for those funds.
This is Jody Ferguson, Haywood County, and this is just a comment. This is really problematic for transit in the future for us whenever you're talking about this link being severed by so few housing units. It just really kind of creates a bit of chaos for us in trying to figure out funding in the very near future after just having gone through, kind of the major transition to become the subrecipient, not directed towards anybody or staff, but this rule change has just been problematic for us. And we're still trying to work through what the details of that will look like, as well as no knowledge. And I don't think staff has this either, of what the funding formula will look like for us in the future.
Right. It's definitely not ideal in a lot of ways. Haywood County Transit has made a number of changes to get in line with the 5307 requirements. And so this is definitely a bit of bureaucratic turkey that is really not great for, planning a system. So, I will say, I think one thing that the 5307 subrecipient work group is planning on, it will be updating the sub-allocation formula since there will be one less subrecipient. However, one thing I've requested be included as part of that formula is that it include a clause that essentially if subrecipients come back in, we automatically update the formula. We don't wait to have a new sub-allocation formula study done to include them. I think last time there was a bit of frustration that entities became eligible back in 2012 or 2013, and they didn't start receiving those funds until 2017 or later. And so I think having a clause in the updated formula of if you become a subrecipient, we're going to update the formula for that fiscal year when you're eligible, can hopefully make what we anticipate to be the Haywood County coming back in at some point in the future a little more easy.
Thank you for that, Tristan.
This is Suzette again. I guess I would have mentioned in the end, but I guess there's going to be a big gap between when I speak again. But there's a really good webinar that took place August 1st, but you can watch the recording and the presentations out. It's called, it's about the 2020 census and the implications of the changes, and it has FTA and FHWA presenting, and so they talk about the similarities and then the differences in the impact. So there's a link in it in the update that I put in the packet.
Yeah, the FTA information has been fantastic, but in terms of funding, it's FY24. Tell me if I'm wrong. FY24 when the census changes become official. So
for FTA, I'm not sure. Probably, yeah.
So I think it's any funding allocated in FY24 for 5307. That'll be when the new urban area really takes effect.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? All right, I think we are looking for a motion to recommend the draft MPO planning area boundary.
That's correct.
Was that a motion? I'm sorry.
This is Steve Williams. I'll make that motion.
Oh, thanks. The audio just didn't quite pick up there. Sorry. Is there a second?
This is Jessica. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. All right, take us through roll call. I think this is the last time.
Asheville, Lucy Crown. Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Fletcher, Mark Beaverdorf.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Castle Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen. Did he drop off? Mills River, Daniel Cobb.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
Yeah, I have it.
All right, so we have no informational items, so we'll go on into our regular updates. So we'll start with DOT Division 13.
Yes, this is Hannah. I'll do the updates for today. Just sit tight and in case Tristan or Hannah want to pull up the updates. Yep. So I'll start with construction. I realized at Vicky's meeting before this one that I-4700, which is the I-26 widening in Buncombe County, is not on this list. I must have filtered it out by accident, but we are about 70% complete with that project. Currently the completion date is scheduled to be, I think it's like March or April of 2025. Just so everybody is aware, we have absorbed the new interchange project, HE0001, into the I-26 widening. So it has pushed out the overall completion because of that additional scope or additional work being added. But as far as what's going on out there, the contractor continues concrete paving operations on the westbound lanes north of the French Broad River. They're also continuing to work on a culvert that was added again for the interchange project. So that's just south of the French Broad River. And they're also preparing to switch the eastbound traffic to the new westbound lanes from the Blue Ridge Parkway to the airport road. And then obviously that would allow them to start working on the new permanent eastbound lanes in that same section. I think they're planning that switch the end of August, but there'll be a press release like there normally is in advance of that. Other projects under construction that are on this spreadsheet that show as 0% just because they're just getting off the ground. I wanted to highlight a couple that are pedestrian safety improvements. So one is at the intersection of Patton Avenue and Haywood Road. They're doing like pedestrian crosswalks and pedestrian signalization at that intersection. I think they had a pre-construction meeting last week and the contractor let the residents folks know they're going to begin the 1st of October. So look for those improvements out there soon. There's also some pedestrian safety improvements on Tunnel and South Tunnel. I believe it's 2 sites where they're doing ped improvements, including ADA ramps and ped signals. And then there's one site that's like a 300-foot section of sidewalk along Tunnel Road. So that project is well underway, is my understanding, and they anticipate that work being completed by the end of next week, actually. And then installation of pedestrian signals will follow that. So overall, that project's supposed to be done by the end of August as well. So look for those improvements on Tunnel and South Tunnel. That's it, construction. If you want to scroll to the project development. So Steve and I did change back to our old format now that we have a newly adopted STIP. So anything post year for right of way or let just means that the right of way and construction funding was removed from the 2024 to 2033 STIP. So those projects will go back through prioritization. Those are our carryovers technically. Just as a rule of thumb, as you look through these dates, Division 13 is actively working on design for highway projects that have a let date. I believe it's fiscal year 2026, might be 2027 or sooner. So all of those that have a let date, say 28 or further out, are essentially still on hold. And then one other reminder, anything with right-of-way outside of the first 5 years. So what is that? Y'all help me out. 28 or beyond is also going back through P7. So keep those 3 things in mind as you review these dates. But this should include all of our prioritization projects, and I believe it would also include safety projects and bridge projects that are obviously find their way into the STIP by other processes outside of prioritization. And that's it for me, unless somebody has some questions.
Just a quick note, I believe it's 29 and beyond, unless I'm wrong on that.
It is. I have to count on my hand like a kindergartner every time I do this spiel. I just need to memorize.
He was just whispering to me, and I literally did that exact same thing. And I did want to say thank you to the division for the McDowell Doctor's Drive project. I did send an email noting that there was a new curb installed that basically served as a wall at the crosswalk crossing Doctor's Drive on the east-hand side. And thank you guys for, I believe, planning to fix that and change that. That's personally, that's a route I take every day. And putting in that curb has basically forced me to go out into McDowell, which is no fun. If an FYI, if you've noticed that or if your contractors notice that the sidewalk closed sign keeps getting pushed out of the way, I have no idea who does that.
All right, well, we'll move on to Division 14 updates.
All right, so starting with construction, just if you're traveling I-40, be really cautious about the pavement rehab that's ongoing there. The milling, the large amount of freight traffic and motorcycles that's making for a bad combo, so just be very aware. Otherwise, in Haywood County, the Walnut Main Street project, the date did get moved out slightly. I'm surprised it didn't get moved out further with the supply chain issues, but they are moving along quite quickly on that. The only other date that has changed in Haywood County is the sidewalk there going up to Moody Farm Road. That got moved out a whopping month for some reason. I-26, kind of the same thing that Hannah said. Contractor, a little bit simpler on the Henderson County side than what's going on in Buncombe County, but the concrete asphalt is being put down and be just anticipating lane shifts as they move forward. In Henderson County, Green River Bridge project there in the south part of Henderson County is ongoing. All lanes are open right now, but when they finish the center section, traffic will shift, and there'll be a press release for that. Holland Lake Road is moving fairly rapidly now that it's actually started. And the extension of the commercial boulevard is complete. It's just waiting on vegetation for that one. Any questions on the construction side of things before we move on to project development? All right. So project development, it's kind of the same thing that Hannah was talking about. We did move the format back to what it used to be. The projects in post years I did not include, since technically they're not in the STIP, so I just left those out. Otherwise, it's the same projects that you've been seeing for a while with updated dates, the current dates that are in the STIP, with the caveat that they're subject to change. Any questions on the project development side of things? All right.
This might be, well, this is a good correction. I noticed it says Acoustic Rail to Trail construction not programmed in STIP and not funded. We need to update that TIP and STIP. So for those of you who haven't heard the news, Acoustic got 2 different federal awards through RAISE as well as the Nationally Significant Federal Lands and Tribal Program. And holy smokes, way to go, Acoustic folks. That is pretty massive. So build it, right?
Yeah. One other thing too, Tristan reminded, just kind of shook my memory. On, the multi-use path is the, whatever, the fifth one down there in Henderson County. That's the one along 280 in Mills River. And it says PE only. That's a little bit misleading. There were some PE funds for a feasibility study, but the PE funds for the actual design are not released yet. There's some ongoing conversation about that as far as how we want to handle it because of the increased cost of the project. So a little bit misleading, but that's why it says PE only.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. If there's no questions, we'll move on to Transportation Planning Branch updates.
Daniel Sellers is not able to join us today. But Alexis, are there any news from IMD?
So just as I stated for the meeting for the first one, Buncombe County was awarded the funding for a zero to no or low to no emission fleet transition plan or study. So it's a feasibility study to see if it's feasible for Buncombe County or if it is a plan so that they're able to apply for funding to receive money to transition their fleet to low to no emissions. That kickoff should start in September. We're looking forward to that with a completed plan or study done by March of 2024.
Thank you.
All right, well, we can go right on into FHWA FTA updates.
Okay, I don't know much about FTA, but I can do FHWA. I put in your packet an update, and so I hope to bring this to you guys each month. These are national updates, just what's going on around FHWA, and then I'll also try to put in some things specific to North Carolina office as well. Even though it's almost mid-August, there's still some things from early beginning of August, but like I said, this is just some August updates. If you go down to the bottom, there's there were a bunch of webinars that happened. Pretty much all of them, the ones that are listed have all passed, but it's okay because you can always see their recordings as well. And then as far as for North Carolina, you guys saw up there NEVI. So NCDOT submitted to us their update. Every year they have to do an update to the NEVI plan. So that was due on the 1st, and so now we're reviewing it, and then if they get, or when they get their approval, then they'll be able to get funding for the next year to continue their work. As far as what my understanding is, they're still working to figure out how they're going to do procurement. So I guess there's some laws about like, you know, P3, and so it doesn't make it as easy for them as some of the other states. I know there are a couple of states that have already started, they've already got their RFP out and everything's done, but there are just some nuances that just keeps NCDOT probably more towards the later ones to start. Let's see, you guys talked about the census already, so I don't need to give an update to that, but I think that's it for me.
Okay, is there any questions? All right, we'll move into all of our MPO updates.
Yeah, I won't go through each and every committee update, but our committees are active. Prioritization met earlier this month and covered a number of the same topics that were covered here today. We do have the Hellbender Trail Forum coming up on August 31st. So hopefully you all are signed up. We are up to 80?
93.
93, holy smokes.
Space, we have capped it at 125, just to make sure that we have enough space to account for people who haven't signed up, showing up anyway. So we have very limited space, so sign up now.
All right.
Or just show up.
Or just show up.
No,
Please
don't just show up.
Please don't.
If you just show up,
I'll kick you out.
yeah, Hannah will kick you out, or at the very least, you won't have a chair.
Hannah's name, so that's.
But if you haven't signed up, please do. It should be a great event. It'll highlight a lot of the local projects going on around the region. There's a whole lot more going on than I think a lot of people are aware of. So that's coming up. Land Sky is holding its annual barbecue in Fletcher next Tuesday. And so I think invites are also capped on that, or? Yeah, so if you didn't sign up, I mean, I guess you can run by and grab some barbecue, but Nathan Ramsey's even meaner than Hannah, so you don't know. Okay. But that's coming up. Also, rural safety.
Safety, because we're,
Okay, but that's another planned event that we have coming up. Just as a reminder, there's, that's scheduled for Wednesday the 11th, but that's kind of our continuing effort. We tend to get two different critiques at the MPO. One is that our meetings are too long, and the other is that we don't go into enough detail on things. And so we're trying to make up for that by having events where we can go a bit deeper that are not part of our regular meetings. So that'll be the next in that series. Also, just to note, we did include all of the different studies that we have programmed in our UPWP. There are a ton of them. We'll be keeping up with this chart and updating as needed. We did get news that with the COVID relief funding that we're using for a number of these studies, that is, we don't have to, or the last day to spend that money is September 30th, 2028. Thank goodness. But we are going to try to get those studies done beforehand. We do have to maintain active quarterly invoices, but we won't have to do all of those studies all at once. So we are planning on getting started with the MTP and CTP update. We're hoping to get that RFQ out later this month. Then we'll be getting into Hellbender, followed by the regional ITS, and then the travel survey and model update. One thing to note that may be of interest to folks, our 2050 socioeconomic projection study. That looks at how much growth our region is expecting to come, and where that growth is likely to go, as well as its potential impacts on our transportation network. The MPO is required to select a legally binding preferred growth scenario for the region. And so that is what we are attempting to get at through this study. A consultant has been selected, and we are hoping to get under contract and get going later this month. Summer has flown by. I think we selected the consultants, and they said they would get some stuff back to us in a month, which felt like a long time, but a month is already here. But that's a study that will be starting soon, and prioritization will be the steering committee for that, but we'll be doing other local coordination as well. So I think that's all I've got for staff updates.
Okay, what about legislative updates?
Legislative updates, nothing big to share today, but we are anticipating some potentially more things coming soon.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have any announcements or updates, topics for next meeting? Okay, last call for public comment. Okay, Hearing none, then we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, folks.